you know, the first week or two is a lot of technique, and especially based on all the years of teaching Painting One, there's quite a few things that people tend to struggle with as they're starting watercolor. So I am going to repeat and re-emphasize things, even if I did talk about them in a previous video. Okay, so we have a couple of different blocks of color. We're going to talk about overlapping, a little bit of color mixing, and a little bit of brush control. Okay, so right here, I just want to kind of point out, I'm using a different set of watercolors. I ran out of the ones that you guys are using, so I have slightly different color mixes. But this is what I got when I mixed the red and yellow that are on my palette. Okay, when I actually mixed and made my own orange. This, okay, is the orange that's actually in the palette. So we talked in the last video about how our colors can be, we can be a little more picky about our color. I might want that orange, I might want this orange, and I might want this orange maybe with a little bit more yellow in it. So there's endless possibilities to color. Don't just use the colors in your palette just by themselves. Keep working on experimenting and mixing with color. Okay? All right. The other thing is, we've talked about this before, but these two squares of blue, this one here, the paper was dry. I took some paint on my brush, some water, not a ton of water, and I put it on. So see how it's a little bit almost scratchy looking? And it's not super smooth as I painted it on. This one, I painted a square shape with just water first, and then I dropped some, I went over and painted it with the blue, and I tried to use the same amount of paint on both of these to give you a little bit of example. So two things. One is that sometimes you want this kind of a look, but if you're trying to paint a whole area in even color, beware, because as you work on dry paper and your brush is a little dry and, you know, almost like scratchy in a sense, you can kind of see like right here, okay, it's going to be a little difficult to get an even area of color. This is going to give you an even area of color, but the thing to think about is that if there's water on the paper, the same amount of blue is automatically going to dilute because there's water on the paper here, not here. It's kind of common sense, but once again, it's something that comes up regularly in Painting One, so I want to kind of keep hitting on that. Okay, all right, we're going to talk about overlapping colors. So I did these yellow ones a while ago. It should be okay. Some of you guys were asking about how can you tell if it's dry or not. Do the sideways looking at it test. If it shows up shiny, okay, then if it's shiny at all, it's still wet. If I'm touching it and it seems dry, then you should be good to go. There's one thing that I do need to mention. If you are erring on the side of having a lot of paint and really, really thick paint, when you go back over it, if there's a lot of thick paint sitting on the top of the paper, then that might run, okay? It's all part of the process of learning. So we're gonna keep practicing and doing all that. Sorry, we got a little out of focus there for a minute. Okay, your next project, you're gonna have a little bit of creative control because you get to design it yourself, okay? But you're gonna be doing overlapping of objects. So one thing I wanna mention, if I start with yellow, yellow is a pretty light color, obviously, okay? If I overlap, let's say orange over it, okay? Hold on, I'm gonna grab some orange off camera here, okay? If I overlap orange with this, I intentionally kind of went a little light on the orange so that you could see, okay? You have yellow, you have orange, and then you have a darker yellowy orange, okay? Can you guys see how it's starting to spread? Some of you guys are asking about how long. I did the yellow about 45 minutes ago, and it's starting to spread into it, and I don't have a clean edge, okay? So you guys really need to pace out yourselves on this project. That's why I'm giving you this project on Monday, so you have a full week. It's not a really complicated project, but you are going to have to do parts, And then honestly, like you should probably come back to it the next day. You cannot wait until next Monday to do this project. Otherwise, you're going to have some of those runs. Okay? So part of this is to show you that. But let's say these are two pretty light colors. Okay? What happens if I come with a lot of purple on this area? All right? So I got a pretty good dark purple here. So if I put purple over this yellow and do my other square, can you guys see the overlap? Yes. Not as obvious, right? So part of this next project, as you overlap, you kind of have to think through, your paints. How light, how, intense is the color? This purple is an intense color compared to this yellow or even this orange, okay? If I come through with the purple that has a little bit more water in it and it's a little more diluted, okay? We'll go on this edge of this yellow. You can already see a lot more water on this. But can you see the overlap? You can differently. All right. So that's kind of why we're doing this project, because one of the techniques that people really don't utilize is overlapping. So this is fine. This is going to meet the requirements of the project. This is fine. This is fine. Okay. As you work on overlapping, this is what is not okay to do. Sometimes people draw out their shapes and then they don't really realize that the whole point is to overlap. So then they'll come in with like a another square and do this. Okay. That's just side by side. It's not overlapping. So as you're going to draw it out first, make your design, and then make sure that you are actually coming through and creating that area of overlap. Because even if it's subtle, we made a bluish purple color by overlapping. So you can see three distinct colors. You can see the blue, you can see the mix, and the purple. Okay? Everybody got that? All right, so now the project. Okay. You guys are going to be doing an overlapping painting project using your own name and then any design you want to. Okay, so let's talk through a few things of what counts and what doesn't count. So right here is the first 4 letters of my last name. You can use your first name or your last name. You can use part of your name. I'm going to put a couple of restrictions, in the assignment details, but you need at least 3 or 4 letters. Okay. So my last name is really long, so if I just do Zoot, that's fine, okay? You can use first name, last name. Don't use a nickname. I just want you to use part of your own name, or the whole name is fine. So see where the letters overlap. The Z and the O overlap, the O and the E overlap, the T and the E overlap, okay? What you're gonna do is say, paint the T one color, let it dry 100%, and then paint the E a different color, okay? As you're planning ahead, watercolor, I'm sorry to tell you, it's a lot of planning. But what I can do is say, okay, I'm gonna paint the T red, and I'm gonna do the O blue, because the O and the T don't overlap at all. I'm gonna do those on one day, let those dry, and then I'll come back the next day, do the Z and the E, and then they'll overlap and it'll be dry, okay? But you can't just stop with your name. You need to add a few more things. So even if you want to just do something simple, like bubbles or something like that, maybe you have different size bubbles through here. You can have a few back here. Okay, this is where you can get as creative or as basic as you want to. So there's going to be a minimum amount of overlaps, and you have to use different colors. You can't just do like all yellow and blue. You need to use a lot of the other colors on your palette, okay? So right here's another overlap, right here's another overlap, right here's another overlap, etc., etc. Okay? So you're gonna have to have, I believe it's like 8 to 10 overlapping areas where you're creating new colors. So it's not that all the bubbles are yellow and all of the letters are blue and green. I need to have more colors than that. Details will be in the assignment on how many of colors. So what does not count? This doesn't count. Say I do all these bubbles, even if they're different colors, and then I say, oh, I'm gonna write my name over it and overlap. If I did my name like this, Zoot, okay? Technically, the color that I would do this in is on top of this. Is the letter of my name and the bubble, is there anywhere where they're gonna create a brand new color? No, I'm just doing this one over it in a line, so this doesn't count. You can do this, but then you need to have some of the bubbles overlapping then. Okay, so you can do that with your name if you want to, but then you need to have enough overlapping elsewhere. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. We'll have a Q&A time after you watch this on the next block day. Okay, let me give you an example of a project that hits all the requirements. First off, you do not have to do a background color. If you want the background to just be white, this background color part is a little bit of a different technique. So you know how I said it's kind of hard to get it even and it kind of turns out a little scratchy? That part's a little bit next level. If you want to do it, go for it, that's fine. But then you really have to work on your edges and your brush control, okay? So ignore the purple part. You don't have to do the purple part. You don't need a background. So see their name doesn't overlap at all. But because of this shape, this shape, this shape, this shape, this shape, they have a lot of overlaps. So you can see the red and yellow made this kind of orangey color. We've got this kind of purpley color. We definitely have a green here and a green here, and so on. This is a very basic design. Does it hit all the requirements? Yes. Do they need to work on getting, a little bit more even areas of color? Definitely, but they have really good sharp edges. So that means that they were waiting for things to dry. You can see right here, they maybe rushed it a little bit. See that run? That happens. Even sometimes that happens as you're painting, you just like drip in the middle of your painting, and so that happens sometimes, okay? But this is the learning process. Let me show you another example. This, when you look at it, is awesome in terms of the creativity, right? So obviously they made their name into different shapes. You can use whatever shapes you want to. If you like to draw and you want to, incorporate some kind of Star Wars theme into your name, and you could make it like the AT-AT walkers, all that, go for it, okay? But this is totally fine. This would get you an A, okay? All right, this one, the drawing of it and the imagination and creativity part of it is great, but are there any areas of overlapping color? Not really. So this person knew that, and she, took the point deduction because she just wanted to, draw it this way, and, she was wanting to do it. So, like, if we look at, here, there's a darker orange, right? There's a darker orange over kind of the same color. So the color underneath it was more diluted, and then stronger of the same color. So none of these are overlapping, okay? There's some color mixes going on, but there's really no overlapping, okay? So as great as this looks, then she actually got point deduction off of this project. She was okay with it because she loved how it turned out. So make sure you guys are practicing to do your overlapping colors, all right? And go ahead, figure out your design, maybe start, a couple of the letters and everything, and then if you have questions, we'll talk about that on the Thursday session. Okay, but you can get going because you got a week to do this, and you really need to make sure that you plan out time to let things dry. For this project, because the whole point is overlapping, I would suggest giving it a day or at least a few hours in between applications. All right, that's it. See you later.